Hi, I'm Lisa Bradshaw. Thanks for joining the show today. Difficult topic, I'm going to be honest about that, but I have such respect for the woman who's joining the show today to be willing to come here and talk to you openly about her son and his suicide 4 years ago. I met Robin through a group of friends, and I always found her to be delightful and cheerful and thoughtful, and had no idea what she'd been through until we got to talking more and more. I've known her for about 1.5 years, and our schedules aligned to where she could be here today. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Lisa.
Robin Prchal is your name, and I just wanted to thank you again for being here. I'm really honored to help share your son's story.
Thank you.
I think you'll help a lot of people by being here, and I know that's why you're here.
Yes, I am very transparent, as I have said, and I'm an open book.
So, so we've agreed, actually not agreed, Robin told me there are no questions I can't ask, so if any of you watching think I dig a little too deep,
No worries.
We don't have that problem here, so hopefully you won't have that problem watching. So, so let's talk about your life. There's probably a life before and after, right?
Yep, there is.
Let's talk
before,
about
during, and
before.
after. The before, Sean, what I hate to say was, but Sean is a delightful child. He was always my easy kid when he was born. He was always the one that we would say, gosh, if we had if we had every Sean, we would have 10 of these. And a lot of parents and teachers told us the same thing. If we had a son like Sean, we would have 10 of them. Every teacher would say to us, Sean is the most...
Every student was like him, right?
Yeah. So we just had this perfect child, at least that's what we thought, but all parents think their children are perfect. And he went through school very involved. He was a smart kid, but it wasn't like he was at the top of his class. He just was a really intelligent kid, and he was involved in a lot of sports. He really got involved with baseball, and that kind of became his love, and he carried that through, although he played football and basketball. Those weren't his favorite, and as he got into high school, he didn't do those as often. He was on the swim team. He also got very involved with 4-H at a young age and FFA. We farm and we have cattle, and he loved the cattle. So he showed steers at a very young age, and he really excelled in that. And then he had planned on going on to an agricultural college, and he was hoping for scholarships through his steers. And he wanted to go on, and he wanted to continue to do the ag. So that was our life before. And
you have been married for 30 years to your husband, and have you spent, Robin's from Quincy.
Yes.
So have you always lived in the Quincy area?
Well, I grew up in Moses Lake. And
so not far.
Not far. My dad was a manager with the Grant County PUD. In my last 3 years of high school, he was transferred to Quincy. So I actually graduated from high school in Quincy. Then my freshman year of college, I went to Washington State University, and my father was transferred back to Moses Lake. So I really was only in Quincy for 3 years, but I had met those key people in those 3 years. I mean, your high school years are very formidable, and so long story short, I knew my husband, but didn't think he was going to be my husband, because last thing I was going to do was move back to Quincy.
Right.
But anyway, here I am.
So you had a strong family unit. You have another son as well, Dustin.
Dustin.
And your son's name was Sean, and his middle name, you told me, is Robinson, as in you're Robin and Robin's son.
Correct.
So that's a sweet name. So you have, at this point, and did you see any big at what age did he commit suicide?
He was 17. It happened on September 11th and 9/11, a date that's difficult to forget. And his birthday is October 2nd, so he was just shy of his 18th birthday.
So he's a senior in high school then.
Yep.
So you mentioned he was involved in sports, he had friends, he was connected to his community. Did he ever go through a withdrawal period? Did he ever go through a period where you can look back and think, what I did or didn't see?
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20.
Right.
And in all honesty, I've read all of the notes that say, these are the things to look for. And did he show any of those signs? In all honesty, no. But what do you chalk up to teenage angst, and what do you chalk up to abnormal behavior? He never, ever withdrew. Did he go to his room at the end of the day and shut the door and turn his music on and listen to his music or watch whatever on his phone? Yeah, but is that abnormal? No. He was a teenager. Did he had started to kind of dabble in trying out alcohol and drugs. But did we panic? No. We've just chalked it up to teenage angst. It
So
wasn't.
you had communication with him, so when those things came up, you were communicating. You felt very informed of his life and his choices.
He wasn't an open book. He was very internal, but that was not abnormal either. He kept a lot inside.
He was always that way.
Always that way.
Not very communicative.
No.
That was his personality, though, you thought?
Very much so, yeah. He kept a lot inside. He was very quiet, and you knew when there was a problem. It was, wow, Sean's upset. Sean never got upset. So when he got upset, you knew there was an issue. He was pretty calm and cool and collected. And so, again, communicating with him wasn't difficult, and we were very open with our boys. We had our boundaries, but we also respected the fact that they were turning into adults, and we needed to let them make those choices and learn from those choices. We try to be the helicopter parents, but we know that's not healthy. So
you gave him the freedom to be himself, and
completely.
That self didn't seem to change much over the years.
Not at all. We did not see any signs.
Don't you believe, you and I have talked about this aside from the show, but I feel like there was a moment when my son was home from the hospital where I just looked at him and I knew who he was. I knew who he was going to be. Mm-hmm. And you had said that he was that baby when you brought him home, and he was the same person until the day he left.
Exactly.
So there was no alarming big change that people think there is going to be when something like this happens.
No. And I think that that's where we talk with other parents who say what to look for. You know, you just have to be in communication with your kids at all times. And if you see even the slightest bit of change, that's an alarm. I guess we weren't too alarmed. We chalked it up to teenage angst. But knowing now, because he left us a note, and he said, I have been very depressed for a very long time. We had no idea. And we were very open.
Let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the day that it happened and the days since. Mm-hmm. I am talking with Robin Prchal, who's kind enough to be here in only an effort to help people who are watching who may have been through this or may be alarmed that their children are at risk, their child is at risk, or their loved one. And she has said that, Robin, you've said that you'll talk about anything, yep. So when we come back, we're going to get in a little more detail about the day that your son took his life. Mm-hmm. We'll be back in just a moment.
Elements is a nationwide top 200 salon celebrating 20 years of service in the Wenatchee Valley. We are staffed with educated and experienced designers providing beauty and health services. Visit our Facebook page for our store hours and our menu of services.
Family roles change with time. You may find yourself being an unpaid caregiver to a loved one. Caregiving can be rewarding, but also stressful. Taking care of yourself is vital. Aging and Adult Care of Central Washington has low or no cost services for unpaid caregivers, such as in-home support, care supplies, and counseling. Connect in your local area by calling Aging and Adult Care at 800-572-4459 and mention you're interested in caregiver support.
Hi, I'm Lisa Bradshaw. Thanks for joining the show today. As I introduced you in the first segment, Robin Prchal. She is of Quincy, Washington, and she's here to be an open book, as she said, about the experience her family endured when her son, just shy of 18 years old, committed suicide during his senior year in 2014 on September 11th. She's agreed to be here today really in an effort to try and help people who are watching, who've been through it, or who feel like their loved one might be at risk of suicide, and to also just have the conversation, because suicide is something people don't want to talk about. But we know from statistics that this time of year suicide rates increase, so I thought this was an important show to do. I've known Robin for about a year and a half, and we've talked about her coming on, and our schedules aligned, so thank you again for being here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And I just want to reiterate that you have said I can ask you anything, so I don't want people to feel like I'm asking too much.
Never.
Because you're here.
Yes.
So let's talk about, you said that your son was a typical teenager. You weren't sure what was typical teenager or not because, you know, most of us when we go through having kids who are teenagers, it's not the same as when we were teenagers.
No.
We don't remember it the same way. So there were some things leading up to the day that he committed suicide. What would you pinpoint, or what could you look back at now and see?
He had had kind of a falling out with a girlfriend, and it really took its toll on him. As I mentioned before, he was a pretty private person, but he was very emotional over this particular breakup, and it really wasn't even a breakup as much as just a situation that occurred with her family. And we had some of our best talks from the moment that had happened, which was about a week before, to the moment that he took his life. And we had some very heartfelt conversations about what was happening in that relationship and why the things that had transpired so that he could understand why the family was so upset with him. So having said that, there was a pretty emotional-filled week.
But at no point did you feel like he was considering suicide?
No, and the interesting thing is, Lisa, is that he had said something to me, and I don't recall the exact conversation or sentence or what he said, but it was something like, you know, I don't know what I would do if she ever left me, or something to that extent. And he had said that she had at one time thought about taking her life, and his response was, I don't know what I would do if that happened to her. And I paused. That really, the way he said it made me, the light bulb go on, and I said, Sean, have you ever thought about that? And he's like, no. And I we had never discussed it. It wasn't something that we were ever alarmed about. Like I said, there were no signs leading up to this. And we were just working through this situation that he was in.
You just thought it was a hard time, growing pains of a high school person.
Pretty normal.
Dealing with, you know, love and grades and sports and peer pressure and friendships lost and friendships gained. I mean, all these things.
That's exactly it. And that was the other part of the conversation, too, when you talk about sports and grades. He was taking some college courses his senior year. He was feeling
He was planning for the future?
He was, and he was feeling a little anxious about the classes and a little overwhelmed about them. And we even said to him, you know, there's nothing wrong with dropping those classes. Just take your regular high school classes and we'll address those later, no pressure. We had even discussed not putting pressure on him to go to college the next year. If you want to hang back and work on the farm for a year, we're fine with that too. So there was no pressure on our part. I think it was more of an internal pressure that he was feeling. So that was the week leading up to. We had his senior pictures taken on Sunday, and he took his life on a Thursday. So we were moving forward with everything that you would normally go forward with.
And the hard part, and I guess we can't really narrow it down to teenagers because people of all ages take their life, and it's this helplessness, it's depression, it can be any number of things, like you were talking about, firsthand experience. But I guess particularly teenagers, they don't have a lot of life experience yet to know that these things pass. And if you stick around long enough, like we were saying,
if you push through the pain, there is joy on the other side. But they haven't developed those coping skills yet. And I went to counseling afterwards, and that was one of the things my counselor had said was, these young people their brains have not developed enough, their frontal lobe has not developed enough in order to be able to reason through it like ours has. But in and of itself, they can't see into the future to change it.
So let's talk about that Thursday. So you had a rough week, but nothing that's glaringly out of the ordinary, and
except for the night before.
The night before, okay. So
we'll go there because that's a tough one. So I had mentioned previously that he had been experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and we had talked with him about it. Well, that evening he came home and he went in and he took a shower, and we were out in the living room watching TV, and we smelled smoke.
Cigarette smoke, marijuana
burning
smoke.
Weeds.
Oh, okay.
And I said, well, I don't think we're burning weeds out back. And my husband said, I think Sean's in the bathroom smoking pot. Like, are you kidding me? So, yep, sure enough he was. And, you know, we have 5,000 acres of a farm, but he chose to smoke it in our bathroom. Hindsight, probably
Maybe
a little
call
cry
for
for help. You know, you can go out on any 5,000 acres and hide it from us, but you're doing it in the bathroom. So that was a little bit of a heated discussion that evening. What in the heck are you thinking of, child? And at that evening, he had said, I am so stressed out. I've got so much going on. I just don't know what to do. So that's when we started discussing drugs as a Band-Aid. You know, and we need to look deeper into what's causing you these anxieties. And that's when we started discussing a little bit more deeply about dropping the classes if it's causing you stress, not worrying about college next year. If you don't want to play baseball, then don't do it. If you know, with the girlfriend, we were just discussing all of it. So we knew we had to have some consequences. And there wasn't any yelling going on or anything like that, but it was a heated discussion. Said, you know what? Let's go to bed, let's get a good night's sleep, and in the morning, let's discuss how we're going to deal with this.
So let me ask you this, and this is the question I don't want to ask, but I'm sure you want to answer it because we've talked about this. Looking back, what would you have done differently that night? Is there anything you would have done differently that night?
I still would have had that discussion, but knowing the state of mind that,
I didn't realize
that he was in, I probably would have approached it with a little bit more tender gloves. I would have sat with them and held him versus across the room pointing fingers, you know, doing what we do as parents and visibly upset. I'm really disappointed in these choices you're making.
Yeah.
And do you realize that these choices are just Band-Aids and that there's other issues that are going to happen as repercussions of choosing this? And so, yeah, I think knowing that, we still would have had some disciplinary action, and it probably would have still been the same discipline. And the discipline is kind of funny. It was like, come home right after school, you know, get your snack, do your homework, and then go out to the cows and scoop up the poop. You know, we're going to have you wash our cars. We're getting ready for your senior project, which happens to be a car show, so you need to be waxing those cars. We were having them do chores, you know, but it was no dilly-dallying after school. Get home, get it done.
You got too much time on your hands for those sorts of things. So let's go to break, and then we'll talk about the actual day that it happened and really what you've learned so far since then.
You bet.
And thank you again for being here. We're talking with Robin Prchal. She's telling her family's story of her son's suicide in 2014. He was just shy of his 18th birthday. We'll be back in just a moment.
Elements is a nationwide top 200 salon celebrating 20 years of service in the Wenatchee Valley. We are staffed with educated and experienced designers providing beauty and health services. Visit our Facebook page for our store hours and our menu of services.
Dear Mary Maids, please clean the kitchen, and the cabinets, and the floors, and the chairs. And I wish you could clean the dog. Colin is now feeding himself. Thanks, Megan.
Hi, Megan. No worries. We got it all cleaned up. Let's hope Colin gets past the spaghetti flinging stage soon. Till then, we've got you covered. See you next time, Mary Maids.
Hi, I'm Lisa Bradshaw. I'm here with Robin Prchal. She's been open enough to come here and talk about her family's experience when her son, Sean, killed himself just shy of his 18th birthday in 2014. So we were talking earlier, and now we're to the point where it's that Thursday, and you had caught him smoking marijuana the night before. You guys had some consequences. He grounded him and things, and
We took his
gave
phone
him some
away.
chores, took his phone away, anything that any parent would normally do, I'm guessing.
Right.
And then what happened?
So he went to school that morning without his phone. And, you know, here's the interesting thing was I had an uneasy feeling all day. And I kept looking for excuses to call the school to check on him. And I never found those excuses. I think it's that gut feeling that a parent gets. And it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had given him the consequence, you need to get yourself together and get home, you know, right away. And 4 o'clock was really kind of pushing it. So I was kind of upset with him, but I had no way of getting a hold of him because I took his phone. So I was like, oh, what was I thinking? And we had a buddy, one of his buddies, drive into our house, not our house, but in front of my office where I work, which is at our home. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I sent him a text real quick and said, what are you doing? He goes, well, I was looking for Sean. He wasn't at school all day. There's that gut feeling. So I immediately called my husband and I said, Sean didn't go to school today and nobody has seen him at school. Went and got his phone, turned it on. It was blown up with texts. Everybody, hey, where are you, buddy? You homesick? What's going on? All those things that kids do. And my husband came home. We put out a few phone calls and stopped checking his bank accounts, just looking for any kind of clues as to where he could be. And my older son and Sean used to go up on what in Quincy it's called Monument Hill. And it's where they hunted a lot. It's where the kids would go sledding. It's where they would go hang out. And he said, well, if he's anywhere, I think I know where he's at. And so Dustin and a very good friend of his, and a lot of other people, mind you, but Dustin, my older son, and a buddy of his in a separate car drove up there, and they saw his pickup on the top of Monument. It's actually a beautiful overlook of Quincy, but he wasn't in it. And Dustin didn't see Sean at the time, but he opened up his pickup and there was a note, and it's the note that we have from Sean telling us that he was very depressed and that he had been thinking about this for a long time, and that if he didn't do it now, he would do it eventually, and so it was hopeless. And as my son picked the note up and started reading it, we're on a speakerphone on our cell phones, and then he saw him, which a little bit further ahead of him, of my son, my older son, Dustin, and he started to scream. Ugh, I can still hear that voice. And we said, Dustin, just hang up. Don't go down to Sean. Don't go see him. Don't go look at him. Come home. Just come home. Don't go down there. And that was really hard because Dustin did see him, and Dustin does have those memories. And we immediately called the sheriff and told them that he had been found, because the sheriff had been alerted prior. And it was amazing living in a small community, and the people that gather around you, the word got out very quickly, and we had people at our house within a half an hour. Family, friends, pastors, and I'm not exaggerating when I say over 100 people. And just like I am an open book, our door is open. It was open to kids and it's open to people. And we had people surround us, friends, family, and everybody you can imagine surround us from the start. And that is what has gotten us through. I call it my trifecta of hope. It's our faith, and that's our family, and it's our friends. And that is the only way that we could be on this journey and do it with some sort of grace, because losing a child is not the right way that we expect things to go. And then to lose them to suicide on top of it is really tough. So we have leaned heavily into our faith and our family and our friends to get through this. And that's what we continue to do and will continue to do.
I'm so amazed by, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I'm so amazed by you and the times that I've encountered you, and just you being here today and being willing to talk about it. Mental health is, it is an issue that people don't want to talk about.
It's a hot topic. It's a taboo word, but it's there. It's there, and it's rampant, and it's only increasing. And I'm not a stats gal, but we know that suicide is on the rise. We know that it affects younger people, and we know that it affects men more than women, and younger people more than older people. But mental health affects everybody, and the brain is an organ. It gets sick, just like our heart and our liver and our other organs. It's the most powerful organ. It controls all those important organs. But for whatever reason, we never say our brain is sick. We're embarrassed to talk about it. Our culture, our society has created this taboo to not talk about the things that are going on in our head.
Well, I think that having you here and you being willing to talk about your family's experience and do it with such grace, I'm just really kind of blown away in this moment. And I just hope that we've honored your son here today and your story, and mostly you. And the hope in having this show is just that people will either reach out for help. We're providing throughout the show, we're providing the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You can research that. There's a phone number, 800-273-8255, and that's 24/7. You can also chat with them if you don't want to talk by phone. So I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank
I
you.
really do. I just think you did a really good job, and I think helped a lot of people.
I hope.
Thank you for tuning in.
And my story's not over, so if
Yeah.
you need to talk more, I'm an open book.
We'll have you back.
Okay, thank you.
No matter what the season is, the weather is always fine at Wenatchee Valley Mall. Come explore the stores today in East Wenatchee and online at WenatcheeValleyMall.com.